In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, TIZ is against corruption in the humanitarian aid distribution. TIZ calls for transparency during arrival of aid, transparency during selection of beneficiaries, transparency during distribution of aid, accountability in monitoring the process of aid distribution, and depolitization of aid. Resist, reject, and report corruption now. Transparency International Zimbabwe, a coalition against corruption.
It's a good morning to you. Welcome to Asake Online. My name is Zenzele and Ndebele, and this is the Breakfast Club. Today, being a Friday, usually Besiaguti was a Friday. Mind you, these days, whether it's a Friday or it's a Wednesday or it's a Sunday, same day lockdown. So I hope you are adjusting to the new life that we have been taught by COVID. And when lockdown started, we were talking about a lot of things, you know, learn a new skill, do this, lose weight or gain weight. I wonder how many people actually implemented some of those things. So I wish you would tell us, what new skill did you learn besides the skill of survival? What other new skill did you teach yourself during lockdown? This is the program that is brought to you by Transparency International Zimbabwe, and we are looking at the issues of service delivery, corruption, accountability, open government, into zonke zinjalo. Today in our program, we'll be talking to Dr.Samukele Hadebe. Hadebe is a senior researcher at the Chris Hani Institute and also a research associate at Rhodes University. He is a scholar, you know, he is an academic. He has been involved in a number of organizations. We know that he has also worked in government, actually. So he's quite experienced when it comes to the issues that we're going to be talking about. But today, our main issue is service delivery in the city of Bulawayo, looking at corruption, looking at water situation, vending, and all those things that many people have been talking about, and want to hear from him. What are the solutions as the city? Where are we going, and what can be done? Hadebe, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Ndebele. Thank you to everyone. Well, perhaps today I'm also speaking as a citizen of Bulawayo, more than just being an academic or a researcher.
Yeah, which is quite interesting, because I mean, you have been in, let me start by there. As a citizen of Bulawayo, over the years, there's so many years that you've been in Bulawayo. What are some of the noticeable changes that you have seen, for better or for worse?
Well, unfortunately, one will start with the worst case scenario, where we are seeing more and more potholes. And now this issue of water, currently we speak, most households don't have water. Those are situations that you wouldn't expect of your city. We grew up in this city. Things were different, and we can really say we are seeing a decline. Even cleanliness, Bulawayo is now compromised. This is not the Bulawayo we used to know. And we are saying we have many questions than answers. And we know it can be better. We know it can be better.
Yeah, you are talking about growing up in Bulawayo. I grew up in the 90s, and definitely it's not the Bulawayo that I'm used to now. In some areas where there are parks, we no longer have the parks. But if you grew up in the 80s, what are some of the distinct features that you think about? When you say Bulawayo, this is what we meant, and it's gone now. It's no longer there.
Perhaps everyone remembers Untutu Ziatunga, when the industries, Bulawayo was once a hub of industry and commerce. Therefore, we're in a situation where the Bulawayo we knew, the Bulawayo where our fathers and mothers went to the factories, is no more. And that is also a question which we should be answering as citizens of Bulawayo and those other stakeholders, including those in authority, to say, where do we go now? Why is Bulawayo declining literally in all senses? As you mentioned earlier on, the issue of water could also account to some of these unfortunate tendencies of a decline. We are a city in decline, there is no question about it.
Yes, a city in decline, and one of the things that people have been talking about is that devolution might solve our problems. We have been talking about devolution before the new constitution. We had a constitution in 2013, devolution was put in the constitution, people celebrated. I mean, almost 7 years after the new constitution, we still don't have the practicality of it. What's going on?
Well, devolution is a hope that was betrayed. If you recall the time when people started talking about devolution, because people looked at opportunities that devolution was meant to bring, not just to Bulawayo, but all the provinces and the metropolitan Harare included. And for us in Bulawayo, there were really genuine reasons. People were concerned about ministerial interference in the running of local authorities. Not that there won't be oversight from the ministry, but those were some of the issues. But people looked at devolution beyond just the administrative issues. They were thinking of fiscal devolution. So that's why I say it's a hope that was betrayed. It's included, it's now a constitutional issue. But as you rightfully mentioned, nothing has come out of it in the real sense as people wanted to. Perhaps we should acknowledge that at that time, as citizens, we had so much confidence in a state-centered development. And devolution was part of a way of saying, how do we restructure the state in order to ensure that it plays a progressive role with citizens participating? People have moved on. A few people really talk about it. They know it's a dream that has been overtaken by events. People are now looking and saying, how do citizens themselves, how do people drive their own development, their own livelihoods, and forget about that central authority which we were trying to say, let's participate and move on, because it has been a waste of effort, it has been a waste of resources, it has been a waste of time. So much research has been done, people moved, mobilization, advocates, you can name it, from trade unions to churches to civic society. Everyone was talking about that because people were hopeful that that is the way citizens can participate more effectively in their local governance, they take more responsibilities in issues of tech. But all that is, to me, something that we shouldn't even waste time on. It's an opportunity. That was a very good opportunity which we was allowed to lapse. And let's look at other alternatives to it.
Yeah, Ubaba Hadebe is saying, devolution is a wasted opportunity, it's water under the bridge. Probably we need to look at how we can look at other issues, alternatives to make sure the city survive. If you are just joining us, this is the Breakfast Club, and today we are talking to Ubaba Dr. Hadebe, and this is a program brought to you by Transparency International Zimbabwe. If you are watching live, you can also, this is a live show, so you can send in your questions, and we are going to ask Ubaba Hadebe to respond to some of those questions or comments. Unosizo duwe lapho uthi kona number 1 ngama-potholes utsho kahle imota ziyafa masinya ngenxa yama-potholes. So we'll be talking about such service delivery issues like potholes. But one of the major challenges of the urban areas or the councils is corruption. How do we solve this issue, corruption?
Well, before we talk about solving it, we must first understand it. When you talk of corruption in the urban space, it's something very complicated. And there are various ways we can streamline. There is the small things like bribery, well, small, but those are the things people are talking about, the small things like bribery, like paying to fast track certain processes. Well, to me, that's the small thing. But we are looking at what we usually call grand political corruption. We are looking at corruption that actually stifles the whole development, which usually is linked to land, issues of housing. But also we have to understand the city. Bulawayo, like most of the cities, is an African city where we have real challenges of massive urbanization without accompanying infrastructure development. Unlike in the first world where industrialization accompanied urbanization, in our situation, most of Africa, we have urbanization without industrialization infrastructure development, which now creates a situation of urban unemployment, especially youth unemployment. You know, Africa, that's why the population of young people is going up, and these are people who are looking for jobs, but there is a decline. In Bulawayo in particular, there's deindustrialization. So corruption must be seen in that context where land becomes central, where service delivery becomes central. And once you compromise those for private gain, you know, when you talk of corruption, you're talking about abusing public office or your position of authority for private gain. It could be private, yourself as a person. It could be for your relatives, which is nepotism. It could be for your friends, which is favoritism. All those are things that is very important for us to say. Before we attend to this issue, we must understand its fundamental, its history, how it develops, how the city was conceived, and how it was run colonial, and whether we have done anything, and how these opportunities of rent-seeking behavior, this pilferage of public property, how do we get there? It's very important. Once we just say there is corruption without understanding how it emanates, how it develops, how it's sustained, because corruption becomes so pervasive, it's cancerous. Once there is a corruptive behavior in one particular area, it must cover itself. It spreads to other sectors. It spreads even to cover those who are supposed to contain it, the police, the judiciary. It's something that we should look at globally. Otherwise, it won't help to pinpoint individuals. They are just small fish in the bigger picture or in the bigger architecture. So it's very important that we have that understanding to say, why this decline? How does it affect service delivery? And where should we attend to it? So to me, that is very fundamental in really understanding where we are, how these things comes in, so that we understand even the laws, the policies, whether they are of any value or they are actually helping corruption to take place when we are watching.
It's interesting that you actually break it down to say, you know, we have favoritism, we have nepotism. All these are from bribery. All these are forms of corruption that come at different levels. Because it might be someone looking for a stand, you know, to just sell tomatoes. They need to bribe someone to get it. It might be someone wanting a residential stand. It might be someone wanting a tender. You know, someone has to pay someone. But if we look from 1980, the bylaws that we had, and now, and you talk about, you know, urban migration, did the city really develop and make sure that we adjust to the situation that we're in, or we are still focused on the old bylaws that used to work for the minority but no longer works for the majority?
That's, you are actually answering yourself, Mr. Ndebele, in the fact that the city is conceived as a colonial space, where certain racial groups were privileged. They had access to land, they had access to better services, they had access to almost everything that mattered, that made their livelihood. In fact, they became super rich. But we are saying the essence of independence, the essence of liberty, the essence of independence meant that we change not just the rules, but we change that colonial urban space. But the change has been such a way that, fine, we have changed the racial structure of the city, but it's substituted with a social class, where still certain people remain privileged. They own more, while others have nowhere to even sleep. They can't even get a small piece of paper to sell their bananas, and they are seen as nuisance, you know, this negative perception against the poor who turned up to be informal traders. We are not addressing the bigger picture to say, has the transformation been such that it accommodated the majority of the people? But of course, as I've said, there is a background of people moving into the cities in larger numbers. That's a phenomenon for the rest of Africa. But then, did our plans, our master plans, respond to that reality? Were we answering, or we just got into offices and enjoyed the perks and they let nature take its course? That's where we are.
But now we are in this situation, mess, if we might call it. You know, we have unemployment, we have all these challenges that we're facing. How do we make sure there's proper service delivery in the city?
Yes, the city can do something, but also we should note that it's also a bigger picture, which must also include central government, because the city is not in isolation, it's not outside, it's part of it. But we are saying, let's look at our plans. Let's understand our situation. Where is the niche of Bulawayo in this particular time? As we talk of of massive unemployment and people in informality. So it shows that we have excess labor, which is lying unused. So we're saying whatever we are planning, are we factoring that we have young graduates, we have a growing population of young people in a changing world? What are we doing? So our plans must factor in the reality that we have. We can't continue doing things the way they were done 40, 50 years ago in a different environment. And the environment has changed. So all those are factors that we are saying, do we seem to show, for instance, the issue of deindustrialization? And we are saying, what are our plans to reindustrialize? But can we reindustrialize and the focus on clothing and textile as the special economic zones policy said? Are we going to compete there with the Malaysians, with the Chinese? So there are realities we have to face also and say, are we really in grasp with our situation? Do we really understand where we are? Are we understanding the trends? Are we understanding the developments? Are we understanding even the expectations of the residents? Because they are a key stakeholder. So all those are factors that are important for people to move the city. But also, the primary subject you are raising, the issue of corruption. Obviously, the incidence of corruption has gone up. So we are saying, would we talk of developing the city unless we also address the issues that are this leakage? Because so much is also lost and we can't even quantify it. That's the problem with corruption. You also cannot quantify how much you are losing. You only see in terms of potholes, you have no service there, you have no that, poor standards of everything from construction. So that becomes the measure. Otherwise, you won't know how much you are losing. Issues of leasing council properties in an unfair manner, that also constitutes a big loss of revenue to the city council, and you hope you will only get money from renters. That's not enough from residents. There is so much that a city, as a center of growth in any country, should do. So we should be very innovative and a very heavy transformative agenda. Otherwise, we can't let behave as if things are normal, things are good. They are not.
You know, one of the things that we've seen over the years, probably because of political, expedience, is the transition from having an executive mayor to have a ceremonial mayor. So we have a situation now where our mayor is not executive. How much power does he have to direct the affairs of the city?
Well, we know there is a history to it. We have a history where the development of oppositional forces in the country and their control of local authority and the reaction of the ruling party, which controls central government, partly explains that there is nothing wrong with an executive mayor versus a ceremonial, as long as systems are working. But in a system where we know there are deliberate efforts to frustrate certain councils, but also the local authorities have become so partisan as well. So you have a situation where not just in our area, but if you go through most of the we have so much conflict even within, even if it's one party running. So there is so much. So you can see that we are no longer concentrating on the core business of service delivery of what a city or an urban authority should do. People are now concentrating on power structure. So it means it's about benefit. So it means it's about control. And that way we are saying, whichever approach we use, be it an executive, a mayor, or a ceremonial mayor, we will still have these challenges because we have not addressed the fundamental situation of saying, does it matter whether you are an opposition councillor or you are ruling party because you have already been elected? You are now ruling where you are, but we have not crossed that bridge. We still have those problems. So you can even see the relationship between central government and local authorities depending on who is there. So that's the elephant in the room which must be addressed. And unfortunately, Zimbabweans have delayed for this far to address some of those challenges.
You know, you talk about partisan politics, and a councillor is in power, or is a councillor is in the office. Where does he get his instructions? Is it from the party or from the residents?
Ideally, once you are elected, you are a public officer, in as much as even if you are a director or a town clerk, you are in that senior position, you are answerable to the key stakeholders, and the residents are part of those key stakeholders, and other stakeholders could have a business and like. But in a situation where politics is everything, you find that people get instructions from party offices, be it ruling or opposition, and in that way, we doubt whether the plan, the expectations that citizens will have is what gets implemented, or people implement what they believe for partisan interest. So we are saying, getting to office, you go through the party, that's normal. But we assume the party comes with a program which you sell to the electorate, and the people elect you with that program. So when you get into office, you implement that program. But in a situation, that's not just the problem of the parties, it's also the problem with the citizens themselves. The citizens have become partisan because they can't exercise their oversight as well. They can't exercise the proper monitoring because it now depends on my party. So once you have that attitude, you are killing development. So in the end of the day, whatever, if I say I'm not happy with this service, it now people will investigate and say, where do you belong? So it should not be the case, because once you are the mayor, you are our mayor. In as much as once you are state president, that's how things work in a normal society. But we have degenerated, unfortunately. So in that way, we can't bring accountability. You can't approach someone, people have to find out who are you before you raise a query. It can't work that way. But that is also partly the resident, the citizen to blame, because they allow it. We run these cities. The councillors and whoever, the administrative staff, they are just part of servants we send. So it's the culture that must be with us as the citizens and residents who set the norm, who set the standards. Once we set the right standards, whoever gets there will oblige, will abide by what we do. But once we degenerate ourselves as citizens, then we are likely to get the type of service that serves our manners and our expectations.
You know, we have the problem of water, and this is not new in Bulawayo. You know, we've had the problems of water from, I don't know, the 70s and the 80s. I mean, do we have a long-term plan to solve this water problem?
Also, the water problem also is two-pronged in that there is a role of the national government in it, which is it's undeniable. But also we are saying the city itself must also show concrete measures to say, can it be that every year, year in, year out, we'll resolve in saying we'll close the taps? To me, that's unsustainable. It has been happening for I don't know how many decades. So we are saying, surely, unless we just want to kill Bulawayo, there must be a clear, concrete plan to say, how do we address the issue of water? Without water, you are suffocating industry, you are suffocating commerce, you are suffocating livelihoods in homes. So water is so central, and it can't be an ad hoc or piecemeal response to such a vital aspect as water, because we need water in literally everything we are thinking of. So I doubt that we have a sustainable or a clear vision of saying, how do we address the water? We could have proffered different options in the past, but if you're not working, we can't stick to that. You know, there are many ways in which you can address a problem as conditions are changing. And we should also change and say, this is a problem that is not unique to Bulawayo. The world over, there are bigger cities, bigger metros that have challenges of water. How are they addressing them? But we don't get a situation where our taps run dry, even if. So it shows that we have also taken it for granted that, well, it's okay, we'll wait for 7 days before we get the next water, as if, you know, it's something we should be so happy that at least today there is water, we're excited. It should not be. It's something that must be there every second, every minute in a normal running city. And there's no excuse at all to say almost 40 years, we still, after independence, we still cannot supply ourselves with water. for whatever reason, that there's no excuse as far as I'm concerned.
You know, what is worrying sometimes is that we all have these initiatives, the Chavez Dam or pipe duplication, the Zambezi water project, the Nyamandlovu aquifer, and normally we don't hear about these things. I mean, but each time there's a water crisis, then these topics come up, they become, you know, topical and it dies. Why can't we have these solutions done and fixed?
Precisely in the fact that none of these ad hoc or small projects are actually guaranteeing that they supply us with reliable, constant water. They are only stopgap measures. And the millions are poured in. So we're saying you can't plan that if the city gets 30% of the water is normal. I say that's not normal. So there is no excuse to that to say, if you can say what is our master plan and what are the long term, if for the past 40 years we had a plan to ensure that Bulawayo does not run dry, now we are worse off than we were 40 years ago. So there's no excuse. You have shows that either we have no plan, it was a knee-jerk reaction because things were bad. But it is really unfortunate. It's bad for planning. It's bad for business because you can't work saying, perhaps in 3 months we won't have water. Perhaps in 6 months. How do we plan? How does an investor even come in and put his or her money where there is no reliable source of water? Without water, the city dies. So there is no excuse now that as Bulawayo, both residents, stakeholders, business, and the council, that we have no solution to the water problem. That our solution is to ration. That on its own is the wrong approach.
You know, we talk about water and we can blame it on natural causes like drought. But let's talk about potholes, the bad network. Why are we not having our roads fixed?
Well, even before you go to that, you know, everyone talk of climate change, you know, water, if it can't just be the natural rainwater cutting to our dams, there are better means now of harvesting water. So that on its own is not an excuse as well. But when it comes to our roads, it also shows that we are not being serious in seeing the value of our infrastructure. The state of our roads tells us about the state of our infrastructure. But also, by failing to attend to the roads, it means you're also killing employment. It means you're also killing business. You can imagine how much is needed and how many people are needed in just dealing with a road that just 200 meters of a strip of road. So the chain reaction of you know, you need sand, you need the bitumen, you need that, so that on its own is what kept Bulawayo going. When we're saying Bulawayo due to the Atunwa, it was a time because we knew there would be tippers, business. City council was an employer, not just of messengers and people who say, but it was an employer because it had those departments. And that is important for a city. Whatever you plan, you also plan when saying, why do I need these cities to be here? Not just to say, okay, I'll get them a state here and there, but they must be working. And the city can't have no plan about that. And we are saying the state of the roads tells us that we are not serious with addressing a fundamental issue of labor before we even talk of the service. Because for the service to come, you're also creating work. Then the recirculation of money. So those are things that we are saying, as long as we allow our roads to degenerate to the state they are in now, in the epicenter, that's unfortunate. And the question is, what is the excuse?
If you are just joining us, this is the Breakfast Club, and we are talking to Dr. Hadebe. We're talking about service delivery and corruption and all those kind of things. And Florence Pumula Uti, the taps are dry or have run dry in some parts of the Pumula. A few weeks ago, we did a program about Pumula, and it was quite serious. People waking up at 2 a.m. to go and look for water, and they can queue up to about 8 to 12 hours for a Bauza that carries about 3,000 or so liters of water. And the whole city or the whole suburb will be looking for water. I mean, we have talked about problems and problems. As we get to the conclusion, what is the solution for all these problems?
Well, I think the solution lies with us, the citizens. we must demand better. This issue of deferring our interest, our needs to authorities, as if authorities are people who come from heaven, they are not people who are controlled by us, they are not the servants of the city, is the problem. I think our expectations, we have lowered our expectations as citizens, and that is the big problem. We don't demand accountability. As you rightfully say, people wake up at 2 a.m. and mostly that's our mothers, that's our sisters, those are our daughters. So there are aspects of taking the burden to those that we believe have least power in society, and that must be changed. So there must be a change of attitude to say, no, we can't allow this. We cannot allow this, but that can happen unless all of us participate actively in the activities in our neighborhoods, in our city. Now when laws are put, budgets are put, we are allowed to have a say and participate and bring account. So unless we all collectively do that, then we can raise the bar, and we won't have people in offices, either through employment or through election, who have nothing to offer. Because the situation is now bad. It can't be business as usual. So I think the onus is on us as citizens. Only citizens can save themselves from this mess. And Bulawayians across the political divide, the religious divide, I think we have to smell the coffee and see that it can't continue like this, unfortunately.
You know, people would say, I mean, we have tried, we have voted, and maybe the MPs or the councillors have not delivered. You know, where do you see the city?
Well, voting is just one thing you do one day in 5 years. It's not enough. It's not citizen responsibility to just say I voted, then I'm done. If you do that anywhere in the world, nothing will work. You vote, you follow your vote. You must be part of understanding the plans that are set by those who are in authority, either through election or through employment. We have to demand that accountability. So first is participation in those meetings, because the meetings happen, they come to report, councillors. Let's make sure we remove our political jackets, because this partisan lens is killing us. It kills everywhere people decide to be partisan rather than see things for what they are. If Hadebe says he can do this, if he cannot do it, excuse him. No, we thought you said you can do this, but it seems you have no idea. It's not that you hate Hadebe. It's not that he should not belong to your party, but he's not the rightful person for that. He can be good somewhere. So that's how we should. That's how citizens run their affairs. Otherwise, being independent and clamoring for democracy won't help us unless we take that responsibility and demand the accountability.
Yeah, someone says the issue of transport. Do you think it is fair for government to sideline or force them to be part, or that is Kombis, to be part of Uzupco, considering that there are high levels of unemployment?
It's an unfortunate development. First, you know that public transport was publicly owned when Zupco was really in charge. But you know, when you come to this neoliberalism where you start privatizing certain services, and now you are in a situation where you want to reverse without looking at the context, it's unfortunate. You can imagine the people whose livelihoods depends on that transport, be it conductors, be it drivers, be it mechanics, you know, that whole chain. You can't just all of a sudden cut off. First, it's not sustainable because Zupco now is from our taxes. And we are saying you don't do an ad hoc stopgap measure. That is not sustainable. We know it was not going to be sustainable. And when we allow certain things, that's why we create debts that we cannot cover. And we are saying because we had long moved to a situation where we say the private players must come into public transport. I could personally not have liked it, but that's the reality. Now that they are there, you can't now squeeze them out like that. You're affecting lots of things. So this is what we mean by policy inconsistency, or policies that are put in to serve a particular interest, not looking at a global picture. And that way, we are distorting lots of things. It's not going to help anyone. But also look at the queues. How long do people take just to get to the city? So there is not even efficiency in that. The reason why Zupco had to be disbanded in the first place was because of the problems we are now suffering. So we don't have that global picture. You just impose something for a short term, but that's not how you run a system. It won't work. And you don't do a thing that leaves the majority unhappy, because these private players, they were legal. They've done investments. Some owe banks for their vehicles and the like. And you mentioned jobs, livelihoods, children have to go to school, all that. You can't just all of a sudden decide, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. No way would that be allowed. And we shouldn't be allowing it. That's what I'm saying. We shouldn't be allowing it too.
Someone says the idea of citizens demanding accountability is being overshadowed by corruption, poor response from the duty bearers, and fear of standing up against social challenges. What is the best advocate's alternative for citizens?
As I said earlier on, if the citizens understand how much they are losing by corruption, and corruption does not only take away our livelihoods, it also impedes on democratic systems. If you allow corruption, it is so pervasive. It will affect our incomes because we now pay more for poor services, but it also affects the governance aspect, democratic. So it permeates, as I said, it will permeate to police, to permeate to judiciary, to permeate to everyone. Because for services to happen, you have to know someone. So we're saying citizens are also key stakeholders in the corrupt practices. If I agree to pay a bribe to short-circuit my service, I impart to it. But the citizens, the residents are the majority. If they start saying no, which they should, it's long overdue, then the rest of the beneficiaries of corruption are just a minority. But a minority that becomes powerful. When we talk of capture, it's easy to capture public institutions for private gain. And they are captured while we are there. While we think, it doesn't matter to pay just $10 for me service. But that is the way. So that is where it starts. It's a culture. So it's something that we should stop, because we should understand that while it robs us of the income, it is dispossessing future generations. So what we are doing now, let's think of our grandchildren, 10 generations to come, they will be affected by the corruption that we allow now. They are affected by the lack of services. If these potholes are like this now, can you imagine how it will be a generation from now? So these are things we should be serious. If we don't have water now, do we think we'll have water in 20 years? Because nothing will happen. So it's something that we can't wait a day.
Thank you very much. When you talk about potholes and generations, I remember Nkai Road, that it started with potholes, and now it's almost a dust road, and there's nothing. So that was Dr. Hadebe talking to us about service delivery in the city and many other issues that affect our city. So join us next week again as we look at other issues that deal with corruption, service delivery, accountability, because we have a lot of challenges, not only in our city, but in our country as well. And he's saying, the citizens have no choice but to demand better service. And we encourage you as citizens to find ways of actually saying, we put you in power, we put you in government, we put you in council. Can you please make sure that we have water in our houses, whether there's drought or not? Dubai does not have a river, but they always have water 360 days a year. So I think sometimes some of these things are taken for granted. For a country like Zimbabwe, with so many rivers, with the rainy season, with so much land, I think we have no reason why we don't have water, why we don't have electricity, why we have poor roads. It is because we have not demanded better service. And we're encouraging citizens to just say, can we please have what we are paying for? If we're paying for water, let's have it. If we're paying taxes, let's have good service. There's no reason why I should go in a 1920-something Zupco bus, which is actually endangering your life. If you look at the Zupcos that they call Zupcos, they're actually death traps, because some of these buses are not even worth to be in the roads. But see, we just smile and go in those buses and queue for long hours. I think if we are worth something, it's time we demanded better service. My name is Zenzele Ndebele. Till we meet again next week, have a good day.
In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, TIZ is against corruption in the humanitarian aid distribution. TIZ calls for transparency during arrival of aid, transparency during selection of beneficiaries, transparency during distribution of aid, accountability in monitoring the process of aid distribution, and depoliticization of aid. Resist, reject, and report corruption now. Transparency International Zimbabwe, a coalition against corruption.